Bradens make it hurt. These Bradens make it hurt. These Bradens make it hurt. These Bradens make it hurt. my dance, make it hurt. These my dance, make it hurt.
You can see us, that's good. And a very good evening, everybody, and welcome along to this week's episode of Tea and Tops. We're back after a 2-week sabbatical for the kids' holidays here in Scotland. So, as always, I'm joined by my good friend Jason. Jason, how are we doing tonight?
Even for a couple of days, see the in-laws. So it was nice to travel for the first time in 2 years, and I'm back at it and excited for tonight's show.
Yeah, and as you may have noticed, Jason and I have broken with tradition, and we're wearing NFL merchandise tonight as my Saints are playing Jason's Seahawks this evening. So a bit of friendly banter, I'm sure, later on tonight. And yeah, as you can see, we have a special guest this week. We're joined by Braden Bishop of the currently of the San Francisco Giants. Braden, thanks very much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this.
No worries. Obviously the time zone works out nicely for you. A little after 9 p.m. here in the UK. And yeah, we really appreciate it. Thanks very much. Jason, I'll let you drive this one this week, I think.
All right, you can put me in the driver's seat here.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Braden, for coming on tonight there. We want to touch on your career a little bit here, and obviously you're very passionate about your other projects you do here as well. So, turns out you grew up in San Carlos, California. I'm correct here. You have a brother, and we'll talk about your brother in a little bit here, who's playing for the Giants as well. I know we have a couple of Giants fans that watch us out here. But I was curious, you grew up in the Bay Area playing ball. You were drafted by the Braves, I believe, the first time?
Yep, Braves in 2012.
So I'm curious, so we don't get to chat to a lot of people who actually get drafted. How did that process work for you? Was that a daunting task, knowing that you were possibly being drafted at that point in time, or did you kind of know this ahead of time? And I imagine you were getting recruited by the universities as well to play for them.
I mean, you kind of have an idea that teams are interested, but I think it was actually more challenging out of high school than it was college, because in high school, like you said, you're getting recruited by these universities, and then on top of it, you're talking to these scouts and these different teams, and you have to make a decision, like, do you want money? Do you think you're ready for professional, or do you want to go to college and develop more and get your degree? And so for me, I didn't feel like I was at that point, like physically, mentally, emotionally, to leave home and go get on a bus, for hours and play 140 something games, where I could go to college. It's more controlled. You know, you're not playing as many games, and you can learn how to be on your own. So for me, like, I knew that I was going to probably have a chance to get drafted out of high school, but it was important for me to go to school and grow up and, you know, get started on my degree, because, you know, baseball is not guaranteed in the end.
Yeah, that's pretty big. It's pretty big decisions that you're being forced to make at a relatively young age, right? What, you're like 18 when you come out of high school, is that right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the perfect way to describe it. They're huge decisions.
Yeah.
You don't really know what the right one is.
Oh, well, that's true. Some of us are in our early 40s and still don't know what we want to do.
Choosing UW, did you have a couple other schools that were interested in you as well? Or was UW, because UW was not a powerhouse at that time. You were still kind of going through the Oregon powerhouse Pac-12 at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few, like UCLA, Stanford, Cal, Arizona. So there was like a few, Oregon, but I don't know. I felt like I wanted to go somewhere that I felt like was like trending in the right direction, but hadn't quite got over the hump yet. Because I thought it was easy to go somewhere that was already established, like I already had this process of winning, but I want to go somewhere and like help build like a culture that could 10 years from that point, you know, people would look back and be like, that was the team that changed the direction of this program. And so UW like didn't have a field. It looked like a high school field. You know, there was like wood bleachers. There was no stadium, and it was in the Pac-12. So it's like you're recruiting against Oregon State, Oregon, Stanford, Cal, Arizona State, who all have these sweet stadiums. So like they showed me these plans on like, hey, this is what we're going to build, you know, this is what we want it to look like. And that excited me. Where like everybody else, it was like, yeah, you know, if I come here, I know we'll win. And UCLA ended up winning the national championship, what would have been my freshman year. So, and I could have been on that team, but we ended up going to the college baseball playoffs my sophomore year, first time in 10 years at UW, and that really changed the trajectory of that program. And then they went on to go to a College World Series and 2 or 3 more playoffs since then. So, you know, I feel good about my decision, even though I missed out on the national championship.
Kind of missed out on going somewhere warm as well, right?
Yeah, that was
it's really nice places. Yeah, I'll go UW.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
I guess you would come up in the springtime, and the springtime is really lovely up in Seattle. So it would have it's like
That's
this all the time.
Yeah.
So that sounds like you were quite monumental on the culture shift there. So that's a pretty cool thing. So you can actually look back and go, I was the turning point on there. Was it just a really good recruiting class you guys had? And I know once you're in, you end up recruiting the rest of your guys to come up that way. You know, what was the difference for you guys? Because again, you are facing, you know, Oregon State to become a powerhouse. Everyone likes Oregon for the Nike money, and show you how old I was. I would have actually gone to University of Oregon, but they didn't actually have a baseball team. So if I had my walk on, I went down there. There's no baseball team, and of course you always have the powerhouses of, you know, Stanford, UCLA, and you see Arizona and Arizona State pop up occasionally.
It was the class above mine that was kind of like the big class. So like Blake Snell would have been in that class. He was committed to UW, ended up signing. Robert Stevenson, who I believe is still with Cincinnati, he was in that class, ended up signing. And then there was like a bunch of other guys, like the Gatorade Player of the Year in Washington was there. And then my class, we had like a few guys, a catcher who ended up getting drafted by the Red Sox in 2015. And then there was like a couple older guys who had gotten hurt, redshirted, came back. So it was just kind of like the right group at the right time. But yeah, we ended up losing to Oregon State in the second to last weekend of the year to win the Pac-12. So we ended up finishing in second. But, you know, that's why you go to these schools to be in it, in the last couple weeks of the year.
Oh, so were you surprised on how passionate fans are up at UW there? Because most people don't realize they're quite a sports powerhouse up that way, and it's usually kind of the sports like rowing. You never thought there would be such a rowing tradition up that way, or volleyball as well. And I believe your wife played basketball for UW as well.
She did, yeah. No, I think that's the craziest thing about Seattle fans, and like going to school there and then playing for the Mariners. Like I would tell guys who signed with the Mariners, like, hey, if we win here, I don't think you guys understand like how passionate these fans are. Like when you're not winning, you're not going to get people. Like people just aren't going to come out. Like nobody's passionate about losing. But you look at the Seahawks. You look at different teams that
right time for the Seahawks that they won the Super Bowl when you're around.
Right, and then you have like the Storm, winning championships. UW wins basketball into a Final Four. UW football went to a college football playoff. So you like the evidence is there, and it was cool to see the Mariners this year, like at the end, kind of have that little run, and you saw the fans show up, at those last couple games, and so that was like the coolest part for me. Is like seeing us build the stadium and like give some people in Seattle something to be excited about. So they came out, and I remember we opened against University of Arizona at home, and probably had like 4,000 or 5,000 people. And I mean, I swear the next closest we ever had my freshman year was like 900 people. So it was cool. Build a stadium, people come.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Like I said, I hate to say Seattle sports fans are bandwagon fans, but when the team is doing good, we're all about how happy the team is there. So it's interesting that you notice that as a minor league player, you can see, okay, when the team is there, the city does come out of the woodworks and there. We're seeing it right now with the Kraken, and everyone's a huge Kraken fan.
Exactly.
All those soccer fans have moved over to be ice hockey fans now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so speaking of that, you graduated. You had some honors with the Pac-12 as well. So you were one of the defensive and outfielders there. I saw. You got drafted by the Mariners in the third round. Was that pretty exciting for you that you'd spent the last, your time at UW to actually get drafted by, I wouldn't call it your hometown team, but your local team for where you at least went to college at? That must have been pretty exciting.
It was crazy. There was a lot of stress in those couple of days just because, your life's about to change. You don't exactly know how, like, is it financially? Is it your location? Like, what's going to happen? What does your future look like? So you're going to get drafted, but you don't really know where. You hear like, oh, this team's interested here, this team's interested here, and you're like, shoot, I don't really want to go there, or I want to go there. I hope, whatever. And Seattle was never really on my radar. I knew they were interested, but most teams say like, oh yeah, we're interested. And then I kind of had one of those draft stories where it was like, I could have gone here, but it didn't happen. A lot of other players didn't go where they were supposed to, so they were available. I kept falling, and I'm, it's stressful because you're like, damn, I'm losing out on a lot of money. I'm losing out on probably better opportunities. And then, like slowly trickle, day one gets closer to the end, and you're kind of sitting there like, well, shoot, I mean, now I have no idea where I'm going to go. And then day two started, and I had heard New York was interested in the third round, and then Seattle was interested. And so New York didn't take me, which I was semi-happy about at the time, just because going from Seattle to where their short season team was literally across the country.
I was going to say, that'd be a logistical challenge, if nothing else, right?
Exactly, right. And then I got a call like maybe a minute before the Seattle pick, and they said they were going to take me. And it's a huge relief because you're like, okay, finally it's done. And I'm like, oh, shoot, like this is going to be cool. I get to stay in my apartment. because the lease went, my rent went till September, and this was in June. So I got to actually stay in my apartment and go play for the summer in Everett. So it was pretty crazy, and I mean, it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
So I imagine that night between like the second or the first day of the draft finishing, and then like you say you get picked, I guess, reasonably early on day two. But how's that night? That must be like, yeah, I mean, pretty stressful, right?
Yeah, well, because you don't know where you're gonna go,
Yeah.
and you're like so ready to just like get it over with. Because it was, I mean, my junior year before the draft was probably the most stressful year I've ever had, performance wise, just because trying to be a good team guy, you know, with your college team, and then at the same time you're also juggling like, well, shoot, I got this opportunity, I have to play well.
Yeah.
But college is not designed for individuals. You know, it's all about the team. And so you're like teetering that line. And, you know, I look back and I definitely regret a lot of things just in how, you know, I carried myself and, you know, what was I actually playing for. And, I mean, obviously it's easy to look back on it now and say I could do things different, but I got through it and I made it. So I guess it was worth it.
That's it, yeah. All worked out in the end, as they say, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So did you have like a small draft party, or did you just keep yourself busy and just kind of like, all right, waiting for the phone to ring?
Yeah, we actually, so one of our family friends lives in Laurelhurst, so, you know, like just a little bit north of UW on the lake there. And we went over and watched the draft the first day. And like I said, I was like right on the board. So I was like, I don't want anybody coming over here. Like, let's just watch it. And then obviously it was a good thing. And then the next day we went over, I got drafted, and then we went over his house for dinner. And one of the Mariners owners, like the minority owner, lived across the street from this guy. So he actually like came
Nice.
over and we took a picture together.
That's really cool.
Crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
So yeah, so they bring you in. Do you get to meet the players right off the bat, or you know, or did you just kind of like, okay, because it's different because you're coming in as a third round pick. You're obviously established. They know who you are. So walking in to say, I still want to call it Safeco. It's always gonna be Safeco. It's never gonna be T-Mobile Park. But walking into there and actually seeing the guys, you going, okay, you're in awe, but you can't be in awe because these are your contemporaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I got drafted in the third round, and then one of my best friends, Drew Jackson, he went to Stanford. He got drafted in the 5th round by Seattle. So we actually we were both in the Bay Area at the time. So we both flew up to Seattle, and like we signed our contracts in the Ken Griffey conference room, and took pictures and stuff. And then we actually had to go, because we were a little bit late signing, so we had to go straight to Everett from there. But then a couple weeks later, the whole Everett team came up to Seattle and got to go out on the field for BP and watch the game and stuff. Didn't meet that many people. My first time actually like interacting with like Robinson Cano and Kyle Seager and Felix was my first big league spring training, which was pretty intimidating because you're like, damn, I just like watch these guys on TV and you know, they seem like this character that you'd never be in the same room with, and then you're on the same team. So it was pretty crazy. And like, obviously Cano got traded, and I got to be teammates with Felix and Seager, which was, you know, pretty amazing. And they're awesome guys. But yeah, you just like, they're a character you never anticipate interacting with, let alone being teammates with.
Did they play any rookie pranks on you?
Oh yeah, Seager wore me out because he knew that I went to UW, and obviously it's in Seattle, and like a lot of Mariners fans are UW fans, so he would always give me crap about that. And then for our rookie dress up, he made me dress up as a Washington State cheerleader. So they got in like a Washington State cheerleading outfit, and I had to wear that. And I embraced it. They made me sing like the Washington State fight song, and it was tough.
Oh, that's that's rough. We always see those as fans over here and think these look like a lot of fun, and it's always interesting to see the rookie dress up day from our perspective.
Exactly.
But I guess you just have to embrace it and really go with it there. So
that's all you can do.
So what was spring training like? The first spring training, like, I mean, did you play fall ball first, and then before you came there, or did you take a bit of a break?
That off season, so that was 2017. I played in the Arizona Fall League, and then I went to spring training in 2018. So that was my first. And that was with like Cano and Felix, Nelson Cruz, all them. So that was really cool. Learned a lot, and then made my debut in 19.
We'll talk about your debut because you had an interesting debut, to say the least.
Yeah.
So I guess for a lot of people out here, they're always like, what's the jump out here? So you went from college ball to, obviously, you went to Everett there. You're going from a metal bat league to a wood bat league. A lot of people don't know the difference here. We play in a wood bat league here, but, our fences are 280 feet long.
And believe me, that is still a struggle.
Well, when you only throw 60 miles per hour, it's hard to get that kind of movement. So I'm curious. So the difference in playing with wood and then the level, I guess a lot of people don't get used to there because they watch Major League Ball and go, "Why this? They make it look easy." The reality is, you're off of a millimeter, and that home run's just a long fly ball.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there is a difference, but I'd say for the most part, like if you have hand-eye, to use a metal bat, like switching to wood isn't anything crazy. I'd say maybe like the weight, just because a lot of wood bats they'll say they're a certain weight, but they're not actually perfectly weighted that way. So like Ichiro had like a scale in his locker every day, and he would like weigh each bat, like make sure it was like perfect. That's probably like the biggest difference is you're like the same bat, they feel different. So I'd say that's probably like the biggest difference. But in terms of like the actual movement of swinging, it's pretty similar.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we have wood bats here, but like they're not nearly as like nice as there. Is there a particular model you like to use?
Yeah. So after my brother got drafted, a lot of bat companies were trying to get him to use their bats. So they would like reach out to me and be like, "Hey, if we send you stuff, you think you could put in a word with your brother?" Of course. So I ended up having, I don't know how well people know bats, but it's like a 141, which is a model. And then I use an axe handle bat. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with that.
The guys are familiar with that because it's Mookie Betts with bats. So everyone knows the axe house
from
Mookie
so it's
Betts.
Like very similar to Mookie's bat. Yeah. Gray smoke bat. So it's very similar to Mookie's.
Cool. So speaking of your brother, so he was supposed to go to UW as a football player. Did you not recruit him good enough, or did Arizona State give him a better offer?
Well, it's actually pretty interesting because he was a very good quarterback, and he ended up getting like a little bit injured his junior year of high school. And so all these college football programs were like, well, if you're not the same quarterback, like we're not going to recruit you. And so he kind of was like in limbo, and he ended up switching a receiver, playing really well. And UW was like, "Hey, we gave all our scholarships for your class, but we'll take you as a recruit to walk on." So he was like, "All right, done deal." He really wanted to go to UW. And then the head baseball coach at Arizona State ended up calling my dad and saying, "Hey, I know he's a football player. My son also plays football at Indiana. I understand, but I think he has a future in baseball. So I'm going to tell you that if he wants to play baseball, I'll save a spot for him." And he was like, "Thank you, whatever, he's good." And then a couple of weeks later, baseball season started in high school, and he started playing well. Scouts started talking to him, and he was like, "I think I want to go play as a scholarship baseball player rather than walk-on football.
Right.
And so that was the decision, and I think it worked out.
So have you guys developed the whole UW ASU rivalry then?
No, because I think we were just so far superior that there was no rivalry.
I'll be honest, that's not a bad shout. UW is quite superior over ASU. But when those wins happen, you're going to hear it. You do know that, right?
Oh, yeah, no, I did. In 2018, was it 18? No, 17. I was at the fall league. He was at Arizona State. UW came down there to play, and it was like the ugliest loss of the year for UW. And I was like, this is awful. But
yeah, fair enough. I mean, I as a Beaver, I do tell everyone to suck it as soon as we beat the Huskies, and then expect my beating next year. So
yeah.
Cool. All right. We'll get back on that. We're getting off a little track. So you made your debut 2018 in Japan, or was it 2000? Yeah. Right. 2019 in Japan. What was it like to know that you made the roster to go to Japan? And of course, you had an interesting debut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously, like forever, I would visualize and like dream about what it was gonna be like when I made it to the big leagues. And like you'd think like, oh, I'm gonna get called in the office and they're gonna, be clever and say you're going to the big leagues. But mine was so interesting because the Japan trip was in the middle of spring training. So really there was only like a couple weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks of spring training. So luckily I had a good couple weeks and there was a couple injuries. So I was like, damn, I might have a shot, to sneak on that roster. So like with a week before we go, they tell me like on the field, it was like, hey, do you want to go? It obviously was rhetorical.
No, I don't want to go.
Actually, yes or no, I was going regardless, but I was like, yeah, obviously. So it's like, hey, we wanted to tell you so you could tell your parents or whoever, your wife, so they can buy flights. And ended up calling. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. End up going, and it was just like so crazy because obviously you're going international. You've made it to the big leagues, and then you're dealing with the greatest Japanese baseball player ever, arguably, is like retiring, and that was a whole spectacle in itself. And then you like find yourself in a position where like I'm going in for him, he's coming out and retiring, and I have to go in for him and replace him. So that was, incredible. And going from playing in front of like max 10,000 people to 50,000 people in the Tokyo Dome was very different.
I was up for watching the game, so I think it was on like a decent time for me. I think it was on like 10 o'clock in the morning, so it was perfect for me. But it was an incredible moment. I mean, it must have been, wild for you to come in as replacement and just take in that whole scene as your first major league game.
Yeah, it was. We played 2 exhibition games against the Tokyo Giants and then the 2 games against Oakland. And so that kind of got like my feet wet just playing in front of that many people. It's a lot different because like you can't even see the people in the upper deck. And then I replaced Ichiro in those games as well. And so people were just like wearing me out because it was like they thought I was taking him out.
Right? Oh no!
So I got booed 3 times. 3 different.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that was intimidating.
I was gonna say you can't ignore that one.
No, not at all. Yeah, you can't hide either.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll bring this up there. You come in there and it was intimidating. How was the mood after the game there, knowing that Ichiro had finally retired inside the clubhouse there? So
that was probably the craziest because the way the Tokyo Dome set up is you have the dugout and then there's like a door, like right behind the door you have training room, and then through that door you have like this cafeteria, and there's another door that goes to the locker room. So game ends, go inside. They're like, hey, Ichiro wants to talk to everybody in the cafeteria. So we go to the cafeteria, and he basically says, I'm retiring. Thank you guys for everything. It was amazing. Obviously, you're like, damn, this is history. Like, I'm standing in a room, like, this is crazy. He says, I'm going to go tell the media now. And so, like, behind the clubhouse, there's a tunnel that, like, takes you out of the stadium. Behind that, there's the bullpen and, like the cage. And he was in there talking to the media saying, I'm retiring. And so the whole team went in there. Guys are crying. Bob Melvin from the A's, the manager for the A's, I think he managed Ichiro at some point. He was in there. So you're always like, damn, this is history too. Mm-hmm. And then we're all like, okay, it's over. We go back in the locker room, and all of a sudden you kind of like see like our PR team running like out through the clubhouse, through the training room, like onto the field. And we're like, that's like 45 minutes after the game. Like usually the stadium's empty by that time. So we go out there, and there's still 50,000 people in the stands, and Ichiro's like walking around the stadium, like on the field, like waving. And he's got, probably 100 media members like circled around him, like following him with cameras, and you see like the flashes. And he like went all the way around the field, and so we're kind of like following behind him. Like, this is crazy. It's a movie, like. And so I'm thinking like I just made my major league debut, and now I'm in this movie. Like, this isn't real life, And then it was just kind of crazy to show like the culture of Japanese baseball, like the respect they have for a guy like Ichiro, and to stay for 45 to an hour after the game ends to honor him and celebrate him. I thought was such a cool moment. And obviously like the most unique debut you can make.
I'm not too sure it gets more unique than that, to be fair. That's
right.
It's a hell of a story.
Yeah.
Cool. So how did the season go for you when you actually started seeing major league pitching? Who surprised you with say like a pitch you didn't expect or had more movement when you kind of got up there? Just kind of that oh shit moment. I'm playing pro baseball.
I mean, well, first of all, it's so hard. So hard. Like, I think that's the one thing I think that it's really hard to like communicate with fans is how hard it is at that level. And like when you see guys like Mike Trout or guys who do the same thing every single year, like people don't realize how hard that is. Like you can look at every single year. Like I can think of two right off the top of my head. I know them. David Dahl and Jake Lamb, both were all-stars. And then like the following years, they weren't. And it's just like every year you have guys like that where they figure something out, have a great year, things kind of go their way a little bit, they have a good opportunity, and then all of a sudden somebody figures you out, somebody adjusts to you, you might get banged up, whatever it is. So it's like super, super hard. And it's super hard to maintain. For me, there's been a couple times where you find yourself in positions where you're like, this is very challenging. So like facing Garrett Cole, that was one. He just like, his fastball is just different. Liam Hendricks, when he was with Oakland, like his just like his stuff and how he competes is different. So those are challenges for sure. But I'd say like one of the toughest at bats I've had is against Clayton Kershaw. Like it's just like every pitch is like exactly where he wants it. And, I mean, there's only 2 at bats, but he didn't make any mistakes to me. So those are like kind of the 3 that just like jump out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the hardest part for we have people from the UK that you just don't grow up playing baseball here, so your knowledge is limited to watching games and then trying to pick up as much as you can. I think pitching ninja has been really good for people, where you can see people's arm angles at the same action and go, okay, well, the one ball is going to break 12 inches to the right, and the other one at the same angle is going to go 6 inches down and left. And I think for people, they can kind of see that there. And occasionally, we get these people that play baseball in the UK, and then, they see 80 miles per hour, and for them it's 100 miles per hour.
Right.
So it's always interesting to when you've played with people that have played at a high level, but the difference is, and then of course you're on a higher level than what you're even used to seeing. So
definitely,
that's a really interesting point, actually, and I think it wouldn't just apply to, I think, baseball fans on this side of the pond, but I think just your average runner, your average baseball fan, I don't think has a true appreciation, like you say, for the guys who can consistently deliver like year in, year out. Like you say, it's like another level on top of what is already the top level of baseball, right? Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of our trip to Lithuania, where I threw forkballs to everybody, and they'd never seen one before.
Yeah. That's our baseball and highlight. Yeah, going to Eastern Europe to watch Jason throw forkballs at people. That's kind of fun.
Well, they'd never seen that before. Yeah, it's really interesting, because you get most people who throw fastballs here and a curveball and an occasional change up here, and you get a lot of guys who come from college that do quite well. But as soon as you throw something kind of funky like a forkball in, it's something they've never seen before. It's quite unusual. So you finish your season that way. You got cut by the M's. How was that? Man, that's like a sore point, right? Like I didn't really want to ask this question there, but what's it like to say, all right, I've been drafted by a team, and the business side kicks in?
Yeah, you get to a certain point, and it's like, all right, now you have business and baseball, so like stuff like that's gonna happen. Well, you never want it to happen to you, but it's realistic, like it could happen. And then obviously, based on opportunities and how I didn't capitalize on them, I wasn't really surprised. You got to be realistic about the quality of work you're putting out, and it just wasn't what it needed to be for me to stay in Seattle. So I knew I had things to work on, and it definitely is you never want to be told you're not good enough, but sometimes you need to hear it, so you can kind of like reimagine who you are as a player. So I landed in the right spot, where I was able to make the adjustments I needed to, and it was eye-opening, and it just kind of helped me like see the game in a different way, and it worked out in the end.
So was it, going up to the Giants and having a chat with Willie Mays to kind of help you out a little bit?
That's how you might want it. Like after the Ichiro thing, you might want it to be that way, but it was more anticlimactic than that.
Which brings us to the minor leagues there. So minor leagues is full of a bunch of crazy promotions, and you guys wear the weird and the wacky uniforms. What's that like for you? It seems like there's a crazy promotion every other week, and you guys have some unusual uniforms to wear.
Yeah, well, the one we had this year in Sacramento was because you have like the Mexican heritage,
right?
And I had 2 walk-off home runs in that jersey, so I was thinking about like wearing it under all my other jerseys. It had good vibes in it.
But does that throw you off? As you're trying to make the major leagues again there, and it's like, okay, it's crazy uniform day. Does that throw you guys off, or is like whatever uniform you put on is what you just wear that day?
You just, in the minor leagues, you just embrace all the weirdness, and you wouldn't want it any other way.
Okay, so you're not going to pull a Chris Sale where you cut up your crazy uniform because you don't like the way it fits.
No.
I imagine. Sorry, go on, Jay. No, please.
You go.
Oh, we're gonna have an argument now, are we? My question was going to be kind of around I guess in some ways, does the minor leagues, playing in the minor league, I guess, does it relate somewhat to your experience in college, where you're having to run that line of, well, I'm playing for obviously the team that I'm assigned to at the moment, but at the same time, obviously, you've got your own personal goals that you're working towards as well. Does it have that same kind of feeling, or does it feel a bit more like we're going for the team here and that's that?
It's similar in ways and very different ways. Like I think minor league's more of a melting pot. Where like if you play college in the United States, you're probably playing mostly with guys from the United States. Whereas in the minor leagues, you're playing with guys from all over the world. So that's a very like interesting, cool way. You learn a lot about different culture. And then you want, like, people say that in the minor leagues it's more about like you individually and like you get into the big leagues, but I think you learn very quickly that you don't play to win and you don't root on the guys who are next to you, even if they're there a week, even if you're there a week. If you're not like trying to pick guys up around you, like you're not going to have the success that you could. You're not going to like reach your full potential. So I would say in that way it's the same, and then different is just like the culture aspect.
That's really cool.
I was going to say, is that unusual to say, all right, go into, say, for the River Cats and just kind of roll into the locker room and go, all right, I'm the new guy here. Is it hard to bond with the other guys right away, or do you know enough of them from playing against them from years that you know a few guys here and there? It's not that unusual to be like, hey, what's up?
Both. There's like certain guys that you play against or you came up with or you might have played with at some point that but then there's a lot of guys who are like, I've never seen you, talk to you, whatever, but it's cool. You meet more people and learn about them and get to enjoy them. That's like probably one of the coolest parts is just like relationship building.
At the end of the day, everyone's in the same boat there as well, right? Everyone's had that moment where they've walked into that locker room and been the new guy as well. So
right.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, so we get a lot of people always say, like, let's fire the hitting coach. So one of the questions somebody asked is, what does a hitting coach actually do?
I think it depends, like, on each organization and, like, duties and maybe experience of the hitting coach. But I'd say most of them a lot of it's, like, game planning. So, like, in Seattle, we had 2 really good ones. And one of them, both of them did. I mean, they work around the clock, basically putting together like the game plan of like, all right, here's who's pitching tomorrow. This is what they throw. This is where they throw it. They like this pitch and this count. So a lot of it's that. And then also another side of it is like, I'm having this problem or I'm feeling this. What do I do? And so they might have drills or give you what they see based on their experience. But a lot of teams are different. Like some teams are super hands-on, like the Giants are very hands-on, where other teams it's more like, hey, let's just compete. Like here's our mentality for the day. And that's kind of the difference of hitting coaches.
That's just a really interesting thing to know because, again, I think a lot of people think you're just reacting to what the pitch is thrown to you, where you actually do have a game plan up there to go. Okay.
Yeah, no, there's a lot that goes into it, but sometimes the pitcher just executes a little bit better than you.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like I said, when you're seeing a 93-mile slider, sometimes you can't do anything about that. So
exactly.
Cool. That was all I was going to ask you about baseball. Graham, do you have any other questions about baseball there before we talk about some of those other projects?
The one follow-up to what you were saying there, Braden, I guess you mentioned when you were released from the Mariners, but looking back on it now, you feel it was the right, the kind of right move, or you've been able to see the benefits of it. Presumably some of that is working with different coaches and different structures and in a different organization. Does that play a lot into that?
I think so, but also I think as a player, you have to develop your own standards, like who you are, what you believe, how you carry yourself, and that doesn't change. Mm-hmm. And then you're just receptive to other opinions, and you take them, try them, and if they work to your benefit, and if they don't, you just keep moving. So that's kind of what I would say about that.
Yeah, just keep on grinding, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Keep moving forward.
That's it.
Yeah, I guess that's gotta be hard because it said like you can be doing really well and have an injury, and it's a nagging injury. You must keep continuing on there and try to play through it.
That's it. I mean, if you're not available, you don't progress, and that's like one of the biggest things. Like your best ability is your availability. So.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool. Well.
That's very
I have
poignant.
more-
That's very poignant. I'm going to write that down. That'd be good. That'd be good in a T-shirt. I'm feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Yeah, I got one more question about baseball, but I will save that one for the end there. So, you're quite a busy guy, not doing baseball as well. So you're in the coffee business. Can you tell us about Cognition Coffee?
Yeah. So I've always been passionate about coffee. I feel like most people are. But during COVID last year, when everything shut down, I was like, I wonder what it'd be like, to start. Like, what's that process even look like? I realized it was pretty easy. There wasn't like a ton of upfront costs. So I ended up starting it, and I realized like, wow, like, coffee and brain health really cross over. So I kind of like intertwined it into our charity. And, ever since then it's grown pretty well, and it's been fun.
So why coffee? I'm assuming that you were already drinking coffee before you moved to Seattle, and the addiction just became worse by going to Seattle.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, I think I enjoy it, and also I see kind of coffee is probably never going to go out of style, so there's always going to be a market for it, and then like I said, just like with brain health, it's just a cool crossover. Keep people involved and interested.
So did you actually get to fly out to, say, the coffee plantations to go check these things out there, or did somebody to vet it for you? Or how'd that process going from coffee bean to roasting it?
Yeah, no, I think it's just making good connections. So originally our roaster was in Seattle, and so we just kind of trusted them with the farming to the roasting. And then now we work with a company in Arizona that's a little more intimate, so we can actually like see the bean get roasted. And then we do all our packaging and shipping from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. So is there a certain style of coffee bean you like?
I'm definitely like a dark roast guy, but I love my cold brew. So something fruity. I definitely like the fruity, not like the bitter dark roast.
I was wondering that because I was noticing that there was a lot of cold brew there, and it's not quite taken off over here yet. But
really?
Wow. It's definitely popular more back home. You gotta remember, like, it doesn't get hot enough for it to be popular here.
That's true.
And when it gets hot, it's more about lager than it is about cold brew coffee.
Right. So, true that.
So I was wondering if that was just your own kind of passion project there with the cold brew.
Yeah, I mean it is, but yeah, like you said, people like drinking that over here.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned that you donate to your charity as well. So can you tell us about your charity there, your For Mom Foundation that you have started there? Obviously, your mom had was it early onset dementia? I mean, how was that dealing with that there? Because that's a whole nother ballgame. You're a professional baseball player. You're dealing with that, and then having to deal with your mom. That must have been really tough.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so she was diagnosed at 52, which was obviously pretty rare. So we ended up starting our charity in 2014 when I was at UW, and then it grew like as the platforms grew with my brother and I, and then that's took off, and we kind of went like local, regional, national. Now we're like a running 501c3, and we have our biggest event come in this November, 6th and 7th, charity golf classic. So our website's formom.org. So if people want to go check it out, there's all of our information. And actually, we just had an anonymous donor donate $50,000, and he had a challenge to our followers and friends and family. If we raise another 50,000 through this tournament, then he will match that. So it'll be $100,000 donation on his behalf. So that's kind of like the challenge we have for people, is just like help us get to 50K, and it'll be one step closer to us serving more people who are affected by Alzheimer's, like families like mine. Because we really like to try and like attack like caregivers and like help them try and take some off, because like my dad was a caregiver, and he wore it physically, emotionally, mentally, financially. Like the average caregiver's putting out $100,000 per year
Oh, wow.
on care in the United States, and I'm sure probably internationally as well. So when you think about that, how do you make that? How do you make enough to pay for care and then take care of yourself? So that's kind of like our biggest thing, is like we like to be intimate. We like to like go into homes, and like our motto is we want to go into your home and cry with you, sit on your couch and cry with you. Like that's the type of charity we want to be. So like when people ask like, oh, what am I donating to, or what am I getting involved with? Like that's the level of intimacy that we want to provide as a charity. So we feel good about where we're going, and like this event could really like catapult us into serving more families who are affected.
Wow, that's a really personal touch you have there, and what a generous donation from that person at 50,000 there. That's outstanding. So we have socialized healthcare out here, so it doesn't cost us anything. So
right, yeah, and that's
such a huge difference. Yeah.
Yes, so different, because like in the United States, you're fighting Social Security and Medicare, and Alzheimer's isn't deemed a terminal illness here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no insurance coverage whatsoever.
But that's interesting. So that was my next question to ask you, if that's covered by insurance or not. Because I'm a dual citizen. I grew up in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I understand how insurance works here. Graham, you hear the horror stories that people.
I hear the stories, yeah.
Right. Of obviously the cost of medical bills here. So I can understand that. But is there any reason why it's not covered, or is it just one of those things they haven't figured out? It's a reason to cover it.
Probably a combo of everything, but I think probably the biggest is not enough young people either know about it, are affected by it, or really know an outlet for it. So most people who have Alzheimer's, dementia, they're not even diagnosed. It's, hey, he's 80, he's losing his mind, let's put him in a care facility. And then that's kind of where the life tapers down. Where like a 52-year-old, you're not really anticipating needing to use health insurance on, a cognitive disease. So I think that's like one of the biggest things. And there's people like a lot smarter than me, a lot more influential than me, who are working through all the red tape to get this covered by insurance, or have some sort of program for it. But what we've realized we can do is take the money we raise and then literally go straight to the families and be like, we will pay your bills. Because we're a charity. Like we can do that, where, some families, it's like, oh, well, you don't have insurance coverage. So the Medicare you get, if you make more than $20,000 a year, well, you don't get that. You don't qualify for that.
Wow.
So then it's like, well, they either make more than $20,000 and lose their benefits, or they keep their benefits and they don't even have enough to pay for the care. So that's kind of like our goal, is like, go in, let us take this off your plate. Like just worry about caring. So that's the difference between us and some of these bigger foundations.
Yeah, I think. We would like to say we're really fortunate here that obviously we have the socialized healthcare, but I mean I don't think that should. I mean it's one less thing to worry about, like you say. But when you end up being a primary caregiver for any member of your family, it's obviously a huge responsibility that you're forced to take on. And I think in this post-pandemic world, people who were primary caregivers who perhaps didn't have the light shone on them as much as they did, maybe are a bit more evident to people now. It's not just it's more obvious, I suppose is the right way of putting it, that the demands it can put on the rest of the family when a family member's diagnosed like that. So yeah, I really like the kind of crying with you approach. Yeah, it's not, while the financial side of it is obviously hugely beneficial, I think the fact that it really targets on the caregiver as well is quite unique.
Right.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I mean, like you said, I mean, how hard was it? I mean, you said your dad took over as primary caregiver. I mean, did he just have to drop everything and stop what he was doing for a couple of years? I mean, and also, what's it like to live with somebody with dementia there? I mean, I don't have any directly with their grandma. I don't know if you do as well, but you only know what I hear. You know, like every day is a different day, and I just don't have any direct experience with it myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they just like lose the freedoms that we find so automatic. You know, like you wake up, you brush your teeth, you go to the bathroom, you take a shower, you eat. You know, like they can't do these things. So if you go to, like my mom, for example, she'd go to bed, and when she'd wake up, it could be 3 a.m, but she woke up, it's the morning to her, and she'd act like it was 10 a.m.
Right.
And so directly affected is my dad, who would have to care for her, who wouldn't sleep, who then go to work tired, you know, and so it's just like a whole domino effect, you know, down the line. But it's just, I think the simplest way to put it is you lose the freedoms that we all take for granted because they're so simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you forget about that. You know, it's one of those things you just, until you have direct experience, you just don't think about it at all.
Right. Exactly.
But think of that. What's one of your most positive memories of your mom?
I think her biggest characteristic that I take from her is like the ability to care, serve, and lead. She was a movie producer, so she did a bunch of movies, Disney Channel, some shows on CBS. But I remember like going to movie sets and seeing how she treated people, from like the highest paid actor to, you know, the person cleaning out the bathrooms, the person serving the food, treated everybody the same. So that was kind of like my vision of serving people, like comes from that.
And am I right in saying your mom was one of the founding members of the Vancouver Film School?
Yep, yeah, she ran the film school for like 4 or 5 years. Was a president for NBC. Was an Olympian alternate. So yeah, she did a lot.
So she was Superwoman. So
yeah, basically.
That's
to
pretty
me.
cool.
Yeah.
She's Superwoman to a lot of people there. Like I said, like I can appreciate what any athlete does there. You know, like I said, you know, it's hard enough to, you know, dedicate your life 16 hours a day to a sport you enjoy. And while you're going through college and there, I didn't realize that she was an alternate to Olympics. You know, just to be considered is a huge honor as well. To be an alternate, as you're one step away.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, so that must have been interesting growing up with a household like that, with your mom being in charge of these things there. What was it like saying with like you? I'm assuming you guys would run around the studios and see these people, like actors and actresses and stuff like that. Was that an interesting thing there, because mom was in charge, and so you maybe got away with a little things there?
For sure. Yeah, we got to interact with some cool people and meet some cool people and just like kind of see a crazy world for, you know, a 8, 9, 10-year-old. But it was cool growing up, you know, watching that and being involved.
That's cool. All right. Cool. Graham, do you have anything else before we kind of wrap it up? We don't want to take too much of your time here. We've kind of gone over our normal hour limit, and we're happy to keep chatting with you, but you know, you have other responsibilities as well too.
Yeah, I got a baby now.
That's yeah. I think one of the questions we were going to ask was, how have you found the whole trying to juggle being I guess a reasonably new dad and the baseball as well? How's that been?
It's crazy. Obviously, like sleep gets affected a little bit, and your time is a little different, but definitely provided like a perspective where it's like baseball's not everything, you know, like now I got this beautiful baby boy that, you know, I get to care for, and he doesn't care whether I got hits or didn't, you know. He just wants me to be a good dad. So definitely like coolest part is just that perspective piece.
Yeah, it must be nice now that you're in the off season now as well, right? And get to have that kind of quality time.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, Jason and I were pretty lucky. We've both done stints as stay-at-home dads for our kids as well, so we can kind of not relate to the baseball travel side of things, but certainly to the enjoying the time when you have it with them. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yep, it's awesome.
Cool. So the last baseball question I had there, I want to know. So how likely are we going to see you and your brother playing at the same time on the same team?
I don't know. I mean, it'd be really cool. I mean, obviously we're a little bit, he's younger, but hey, if he does his job and plays well, and I do my job and play well, then I guess we might have a good chance.
That's cool. I saw that that you guys have a few years difference there, and he's got a little way to travel to keep up with you there. But that must be a pretty cool thing to think you guys can be playing on the same team. Hopefully on the Giants, but I guess the River Cats will have to do for the moment.
For sure, exactly. Yeah, we'll see. Never know.
Yeah. We'll kind of get you out here on this one then. So having been originally drafted by the Braves, like you said, at high school, you're rooting for the Braves in the World Series?
Yeah. Braves. I got to root for my guy, Jock Peterson.
Nice, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Jason, I don't know what side of the fence you're on, but I'm going for the Braves as well. Normally I'm a Yankees guy. So I was between a rock and a hard place and trying to pick between the Astros or the Red Sox there. So I'll defect to the National League. But
there you go.
I'll go with the Braves there. I can't root for a division rival. That's just not going to happen. So.
Yeah, there you go. That's a fair point. Yeah. Awesome. That's really great. Well, Braden, thanks very much for joining us this week on Tea and Tops. It's been great having you with us. We appreciate your time and obviously taking us through your career and a bit of your personal life there. We really appreciate it. Jason, as always, thank you for joining us this week. Now that we're both relaxed after 2 weeks of looking after the kids, right? Hopefully they'll be back to school and we can get our lives back a little bit. Oh yeah, this is what happens, by the way, when your kids get to school age. Like, you can't wait to see the back of them. I should make that clear. So yeah, while your wee boy is unable to be cheeky to you and is unable to move around, then enjoy those times.
Right.
Yeah.
I will. I'm gonna go do it now.
Yeah, that's the best bit of dad advice I can give, I think.
Exactly.
So thanks very much everybody for listening. Like I say, this episode will be available as a podcast on Wednesday at 9 p.m. GMT on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much anywhere else where podcasts are available. Braden, once again, thanks very much. Jason, thank you as well. And Jason and I will be back next week. I'm not sure if we have a guest or not yet, but we'll put something out on social media closer to the time.
Yes, and we'll post Brazen links on all the social media accounts there, so if everyone's there, you'll be able to find everything.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you happen to be in the Arizona area on the 6th and 7th, is that right, Braden? That's when the golf classic is, yeah.
Yep.
Either get out and support or go along and play, or just drop a donation. That was 4mom, so the number 4mom.org. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep, you got it.
I got it. I should have it. I'm sitting looking at the website. Why can't I read? All right, great. Okay, thanks again. We'll be back next week. Take care.
Thanks, fellas.
These Bradens make it hurt. Beats by Dallas, make it hurt.